chandeliers inside the royal hall glowed like gold, hanging over a world that moved with grace and control. Crystal glasses clicked gently, laughter floated in the air like perfume, and every guest sparkled in gowns and suits, chosen not for comfort, but for recognition. This wasn't just another event. It was the music gala of the year, a night of donations, applause, and faces that smiled only when they knew a camera was near. He walked in quietly. No entourage, no press, no flash. Just a man in a black shirt and shoes that looked like they'd been places. Keanu Reeves didn't walk like the others. He didn't check his reflection. He didn't even glance around. He came in with the kind of silence that made people forget to look, and then regret that they didn't. At the front desk, the woman in red didn't raise her head. She was too focused on her tablet. "Name?" she asked flatly. "Keanu Reeves," he answered softly. She paused. Her finger hovered over the screen. Tap, scroll, pause, tap again. Then a small shake of her head. "You're not on the list." Keanu smiled politely. "It was a private invite. I was told I wouldn't be on the list, but someone would know." "Do you have a code or formal email?" "No," he said, pulling a folded piece of paper from his pocket. A short, handwritten note. Ink faded. One initial at the bottom. "C." She frowned. "I'll have to check with my supervisor." Before he could respond, a voice sliced through the space like cold air. "Emily," the woman called. Her silver dress shimmered like it had been stitched from snow. Her hair was perfect, her eyes sharper than they needed to be. Lady Vivica Thorne. If money had a personality, it would walk like her. She looked at Keanu, like he had stepped into her private drawing room without knocking. "Is there an issue?" "He says he's invited, but has no credentials," Emily said. Vivica's lips curved slightly. How quaint. Her gaze dropped from his face to his shoes, then back up. "Sir, this is an exclusive event. We can't allow anyone inside based on notes." Keanu met her eyes, steady. "I was told to come quietly, not to attract attention." Her smile thinned. "There's a press entrance near the service dock. You're welcome to watch from there, if you'd like." A few people around the check-in desk chuckled. Not loud. Just enough to be heard. Keanu gave a short nod. "Thank you." He turned and stepped back, not embarrassed. Just done with the conversation. But Vivica wasn't finished. She lifted her hand, waved toward security. "Kindly have someone guide him out of the hall," she said, almost casually. "We have no room for improvisation tonight." As the guards approached, a man at the door leaned toward another and whispered, "Did he seriously think that shirt would get him in?" Another replied, "Maybe he's one of those moody background musicians." And just like that, a man who had come to help, not to be seen, was being removed like a mistake. But Keanu didn't leave the building. He took a quiet detour, found a seat 5 rows from the back. No name card, no tablecloth, just an empty folding chair with a clean view of the stage. He crossed his legs, folded his hands, sat still. He wasn't there to impress anyone. He was there because someone once told him that music had the power to heal things that medicine couldn't. And tonight, the cause mattered more than the claps. A murmur passed near the front. "Who is that man in black?" Vivica asked, her eyes narrow again. The event's MC leaned toward her. "I thought he was with the artist team. Maybe Clif's people?" "He's not with me," Vivica said flatly. "Fix it." She snapped her fingers toward the usher. And as another waiter politely leaned in toward Keanu to ask him to move, the laughter in the room began to shift. Not the cheerful kind. The quiet, condescending kind that makes you feel like a stranger in your own skin. And still, Keanu didn't say a word. Not yet. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments. And if you've ever seen the quietest person in the room change everything, this story is for you. The lighting inside the grand hall dimmed just enough for the chandeliers to glow brighter. casting long golden shadows across polished marble and glittering gowns. A quartet began to play a soft instrumental. Forks paused mid-air. Conversations softened into background noise. The room had settled into the rhythm of elegance and appearances. But not everyone belonged to the beat. At the center table, surrounded by donors, Vivica Thorne lifted her glass and glanced around like a queen scanning her court. "Still no idea who that man is?" she asked, her voice wrapped in fake curiosity. Someone smirked. "I thought he was the guy who tuned the piano." A few chuckled. Across the room, Keanu sat in silence, still and watchful. No badge, no nameplate. Just a man dressed simply, now tucked into the far corner like a misplaced chair. He didn't flinch at the whispers, even as they floated like smoke through the air. Laughter, especially the polite kind, always knew where to land. And tonight, it all landed on him. "Do you want anything to drink, sir?" a young waiter asked, nervously holding a tray of glasses. Keanu looked up and offered a soft smile. "No, but thank you. That's kind of you." The waiter nodded, surprised at how genuine the response felt. Not staged, not performed, just real. And it unsettled him. For a moment, he forgot why he even felt nervous around this man. Across the room, Vivica watched the exchange with narrowed eyes. She leaned closer to Elise Markham. "He's calm. Too calm. That's dangerous." Elise laughed. "Dangerous? He hasn't said a word." "That's exactly my point," Vivica whispered back. The next moment shifted everything. On the massive screen behind the stage, the camera, set to do a gentle pan of the audience, lingered accidentally on one face. A man sitting alone in a black shirt. No tie, no glow, just stillness. Keanu Reeves. A hush fell, one of those sharp, immediate silences that drop into a room like someone flipped a switch. No one laughed now. No one clapped. A ripple moved through the crowd, heads turning, mouths whispering. "Was that? Is he?" Vivica's expression froze. "Elise," she hissed, "cut the feed. Now!" The screen went black. Lights flickered. The music stopped. Guests looked around, puzzled. Elise blinked in panic. "Should I say something?" Vivica's jaw tightened. "Yes. Say anything. Make it smooth." Elise stood, walked to the mic with the kind of smile that only ever hides panic. "Ladies and gentlemen, a brief technical confusion. Everything's fine now. Thank you for your understanding." Polite applause returned. But the tension, it stayed. From the shadows, Keanu was asked to follow security. Again. He stood, quietly. He didn't argue, didn't resist. He straightened the sleeves of his black shirt and walked through rows of people who had laughed at him just minutes ago. Some averted their eyes. Others whispered again, but this time, not with laughter, with uncertainty. Vivica took a slow sip of wine, her fingers resting perfectly around the glass. But her shoulders were stiff now. Her victory didn't feel like one, because deep down, she knew what the others didn't. He hadn't said a single word, and yet, somehow, he had stolen the room. The hallway behind the stage was cold and quiet, lined with worn posters and faded signs that hadn't been updated in years. It wasn't a space meant for guests. It was the forgotten back end of a grand illusion. The music from the hall still floated through the walls like a memory, soft and distant. Keanu stood alone near a stack of storage cases, his hands in his pockets, eyes fixed on a small monitor showing the live stage. He didn't blink much. He just watched, like he had come to see something no one else could. The guards who had escorted him there gave him an awkward nod before walking away, unsure if they should apologize or pretend none of it had happened. He didn't blame them. They were just doing what they were told. A stagehand passed by, did a double take, and then froze. "Wait, are you?" he began, but Keanu simply gave a faint smile. The guy nodded, like he'd seen a ghost, and vanished into the wings. From the other side of the screen, Vivica Thorne was laughing again, tossing compliments toward a famous donor like confetti. But something in her face had shifted. The confidence was still there, but it was cracked. Because no matter how deep the gala had buried Keanu, he hadn't disappeared. He'd simply stepped out of the spotlight. A young woman with a headset hurried by, then stopped and circled back. Sir, you really shouldn't be back here, she said, clearly nervous. They told me to wait here, Keanu replied calmly. She glanced around, unsure. No one waits here unless they're part of staff or talent. I'm neither, he said, but I'm not here to cause trouble. His voice was so still, so certain, it pulled the air out of the space. She stared at him for a beat longer than she should have, then sighed, pulled a bottle of water from her tray, and handed it to him. Well, if anyone asks, you're with me, for a minute. He gave her a quiet thank you. Back inside the hall, everything had returned to normal. The camera crew was preparing for the next recognition segment. Champagne was refilled. A well-known singer was warming up. Smiles were painted back onto faces like nothing had happened. But whispers had started. Donors from different tables were asking, who was the man in black? Some had seen the clip before it was cut. Others had caught wind on social media. A few were already Googling quietly under the tablecloth. Vivica felt it all, the control slipping through her fingers. She turned to Elise. You said he was escorted out. He was, Elise said, trying to stay calm. I saw them take him backstage. Then why is he still here in people's mouths? Vivica snapped. Elise glanced at her phone. It's trending. Vivica stood abruptly. Her chair barely made a sound, but the few around her shifted in their seats, sensing something change. She walked quickly and quietly toward the backstage corridor, her heels tapping like an anxious metronome. When she turned the corner, she found him exactly where she feared he'd be. Calm, seated, watching the screen like he didn't belong, but had never been more present. She stepped forward. This area is restricted, she said coldly. I was told to wait, he replied, not even moving. By who? A woman with a clipboard, he said. Didn't catch her name. Her voice lowered, sharp now. You've had your moment, Mr. Reeves. You've distracted enough people. This event is built on precision, not confusion. I didn't cause any confusion, he said gently. I just came to listen. Her jaw tightened. Your silence may feel powerful to you, but here, it's invisible. No one knows you. No one cares. He didn't flinch. He didn't answer. That made it worse. Leave now, she whispered, or I'll make sure you do. Keanu stood slowly, calm, controlled. If that's what you really want? And he walked past her, not fast, not defiant, just still. She watched him go, her hands clenched at her sides. And for the first time that night, Vivica didn't feel in control. She felt afraid, not of what he'd say, but of what he'd already done, without saying a word. The music inside the royal hall slowed to a near stop as the final notes of the chamber piece faded like mist. A warm amber light bathed the crowd, and for a few seconds, everything stood still, until a single spotlight lit up the center of the stage. From the side, Sir Clif stepped forward. His presence didn't need introduction. His name was enough to pull every eye toward him. He smiled humbly, then gently pressed his palm to his chest. Thank you, he began. It's an honor to stand here tonight among so many generous hearts, artists, patrons, and believers in what music can still do. The room responded with respectful applause. But Vivica didn't clap. Her hands remained in her lap, her face expressionless. Something in her chest had shifted, though she wouldn't admit it. Not yet. Clif looked out across the glittering sea of faces, then took a small breath. But before I begin this next song, he said, I want to say something that's not in the program. The air shifted. Every glass stilled. Forks froze mid-air. Someone coughed quietly in the back. Clif's voice dropped a little lower. Earlier this evening, someone was removed from this room. The sentence landed like thunder. Heads turned, eyebrows raised. Even those pretending not to listen now leaned forward, wine glasses forgotten. Cliff continued, his words careful, deliberate. He came without a badge, without fanfare. He didn't ask to be seen. He didn't even ask for a seat. He just came quietly. And what most of us didn't know is that he's the only reason this gala wasn't canceled 3 months ago. A wave of confusion passed through the room. Vivica's fingers twitched. Her chest tightened. She didn't move. When our funding collapsed, Cliff said, when our hope was at risk, he didn't ask for press or applause. He simply asked, "How much do you need?" Gasps now. People looked around. The screen behind Cliff flickered. And then, the live feed from backstage appeared. Keanu Reeves, still in that black shirt, still standing alone in the shadows. The room inhaled as one. Cliff's voice didn't waver. That man saved this night, this mission, this music. No one moved. You removed him, but he's the reason we're all here. Silence turned to awe. Shame slipped into the room like a cold draft. And then, applause. Hesitant at first, then louder. Guests began to rise, not dramatically, but with quiet understanding. The same people who had whispered about him now stood for him. At the front, Vivica sat frozen. Everyone around her had risen, but she couldn't. Her breath was shallow. Her world, perfect, polished, choreographed, was cracking. The camera stayed on Keanu. He didn't smile. He didn't wave. He simply nodded at Cliff. Small, respectful. Like someone who had accepted a thank you he never asked for. Cliff placed a hand over his heart. Sometimes, he said, the most powerful presence in a room is the one that says nothing at all. He turned back to the mic. And tonight, I dedicate this song to the man who reminded us what grace really looks like. The piano began. A soft melody filled the room. And as the music rose, Keanu stepped quietly back into the shadows. But his presence didn't leave. It stayed there, etched into the memory of every person watching. Vivica sat motionless. No one looked at her anymore. Not Elise. Not the donors. Even the server beside her moved to another table. She tried to lift her glass in a lonely toast, but no one joined her. Her voice, once powerful, now held no weight. And across the room, where the spotlight had once refused to shine, Keanu Reeves had become the silent center of everything. As Cliff finished his final note, the crowd rose again. Not to clap, but to honor something that couldn't be rehearsed. Kindness, humility, and power that didn't need a stage. If this story moved you, made you pause, reflect, or reminded you of the quiet power of kindness, drop a like or type "I'm listening" in the comments below. Let's hear from the silent believers, the ones who show up not for the spotlight, but for the song. We read every word,